Her plan was to scam insurance money. It ended with 2 lives lost. She unraveled, blaming everyone. And then she said, "I planned it. My name is James, and I'm just a regular guy from a small town in Ohio, trying to make sense of a life that's been turned upside down. I live in Columbus now, but things weren't always this chaotic. My wife, Emily, was the spark in my world, a woman full of energy, with a laugh that could light up a room. But she had a wild streak, always chasing some new idea, no matter how crazy it seemed. That impulsiveness was part of what drew me to her, back when we were young and dreaming big. We met in college, at Ohio State, during a late-night study session in the library. She was doodling in her notebook, not studying, her eyes bright with ideas. We hit it off, and soon we were inseparable. After graduation, we settled in Columbus, got married, and started building a life together. I worked long shifts at a factory, hauling boxes, my back aching by the end of the day. Emily had a steady job at a marketing firm downtown, but she hated it. She'd come home, flop on the couch, and talk about how her soul was dying in that cubicle. One night, about a year into our marriage, Emily came home buzzing with excitement. Her eyes sparkled as she told me she'd quit her job, just like that. No warning, no plan. She wanted to be a painter, inspired by some artist she saw on Instagram, traveling the world, selling vibrant canvases. I was stunned. "Emily, we've got bills," I said, my voice tight. She didn't have a single paintbrush to her name, let alone a portfolio, but she was adamant, saying she couldn't waste another day at a job that drained her. She wanted to chase her passion, to live a life that felt real. I tried to be supportive. I loved her fire, her courage, but inside, I was terrified. Our finances were already tight, with rent, utilities, and the payments on our only car, a beat-up Honda Civic we couldn't afford to lose. Without her income, I had to pick up extra shifts at the factory. My feet throbbed, my hands ached, but I kept going, telling myself it was for us. Emily threw herself into painting, but the gigs were scarce. She'd spend hours in our tiny apartment, splattering paint, her face glowing with hope. Sometimes, she'd sell a piece for a few bucks at a local market, and her smile made it worth it. But the bills piled up, and I could feel the strain creeping into our marriage. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, worrying about how we'd make it. Emily's impulsiveness wasn't new. She'd always been the type to book a weekend trip to Cincinnati on a whim, or blow our grocery budget on a new dress. I loved that about her, how she made life feel alive. But as the months dragged on, her dreams weren't paying the bills, and I was drowning in exhaustion. I kept hoping things would turn around, that she'd find her footing. I never imagined her next impulsive move would shatter our world, leaving me to pick up the pieces of a life I barely recognized. I'll never forget the day Emily came home without the car. It was a chilly evening in Columbus, the kind where the wind cuts through your jacket. I was on the couch, nursing a beer, my muscles sore from a double shift at the factory. The apartment was quiet, too quiet, until the door burst open. Emily stood there, her face streaked with tears, her hands trembling. My stomach dropped. "Where's the car?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. She didn't answer, just collapsed onto the floor, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. I knelt beside her, my heart racing. "Emily, what happened? Talk to me." It took forever to calm her down, her words coming out in gasps. When she finally spoke, it was like a punch to the chest. She'd taken the car, said she was going to the grocery store, but that was a lie. Instead, she drove to a busy intersection on High Street, right in the heart of Columbus. She'd had this idea, this insane plan, to crash our Honda Civic into another car, just enough to total it so we could claim the insurance money. "We need the cash, James," she cried, her voice breaking. I thought it would fix everything. I stared at her, my mind reeling. I'd told her no when she first brought up the idea a week ago. I'd been firm our car was our lifeline, the only way I got to work, the only way we got by. But she didn't listen. She never did when she got an idea in her head. She told me she'd waited at a red light, her hands gripping the wheel, heart pounding. When the light turned red for the other side, she floored it, slamming into an oncoming SUV. The crash was deafening, she said. Metal crunching, glass shattering. She wasn't hurt, not a scratch, but the other car, she choked on the words, the other car had a woman, maybe in her 50s, and her teenage daughter. Both gone, instantly, on impact. My mouth went dry. I couldn't breathe. "You did what?" I whispered, hoping I'd misheard. But she kept talking, her voice frantic, saying she didn't mean for anyone to die. She thought it would be a fender bender, something small, just enough for the insurance payout. "We're drowning, James," she sobbed. "I was trying to save us. Save us." I wanted to scream. 2 people were dead, and she thought this was saving us? She said she panicked after the crash, jumped out of the car, and ran, leaving the wreckage behind. She walked miles back to our apartment, her mind spiraling, terrified of what she'd done. I sat there, numb, as her words sank in. The woman I loved, the one I'd stayed up late with, planning our future, had caused a tragedy. My hands shook as I tried to process it. "Emily, you killed them," I said, my voice barely a whisper. She flinched, her eyes wild, like she hadn't let herself think those words. "I didn't mean to," she kept repeating, rocking back and forth. "I didn't mean to," but intent didn't matter. 2 lives were gone, a mother and her daughter, snuffed out because of her reckless plan. I felt sick, my stomach churning, my mind screaming at me to do something, anything, but I was frozen. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. earlier. I thought about the families of those women, the pain they'd feel when they got the call. I thought about our car, now a twisted heap somewhere on High Street. I thought about Emily, her face crumpled, her hands clutching at me like I could make this go away. But I couldn't. This wasn't like her quitting her job or blowing our savings on a whim. This was destruction, death, and there was no undoing it. I loved her. God help me. I still did. But in that moment, I didn't know who she was anymore. All I knew was that our life, whatever it had been, was over. The police showed up at our Columbus apartment less than an hour after Emily's confession. The knock on the door was sharp, relentless, like a hammer driving nails into my chest. I opened it, and there they were, 2 officers, their faces grim, badges glinting under the hallway light. "Is Emily Carter here?" one asked, his voice flat but heavy. I nodded, my throat tight, and pointed to where she sat on the couch, still trembling, her eyes red and swollen. Emily looked up, and something in her snapped. She leapt to her feet, screaming, "I didn't do it! It wasn't me!" Her voice was shrill, piercing, as she backed away, knocking over a lamp. The officers moved in, calm but firm, telling her to put her hands behind her back. She didn't listen. She thrashed, her arms flailing, her hair wild as she yelled about being framed, about some conspiracy she couldn't explain. I stood there, frozen, watching my wife unravel. One officer grabbed her wrists, and she kicked, her foot slamming into the coffee table, sending magazines flying. It took both of them to cuff her, her screams echoing through the apartment. "James, help me!" she cried, her eyes locking onto mine, desperate, pleading. My stomach twisted, but I couldn't move. Help her how? She'd killed 2 people, fled the scene, and now the law was closing in. The officers dragged her toward the door, her feet scraping the floor. She kept screaming, her voice breaking. "They're lying! They're all lying!" I followed them outside, my legs heavy, like I was wading through mud. They shoved her into the back of the squad car, her face pressed against the window, tears streaming, her mouth still moving, shouting nonsense about setups and betrayal. The car pulled away, red and blue lights flashing, and her screams faded into the night. I sank onto the steps of our building, the cold concrete biting through my jeans. My mind was a mess, anger, grief, disbelief crashing together. How had it come to this? Emily, the woman who'd once painted our apartment walls a bright yellow because it felt like sunshine, had caused a tragedy that shattered lives. I thought back to the signs I'd missed, the little things that seemed harmless at the time, like the time she spent our rent money on art supplies, swearing she'd sell a painting to cover it, or the late nights she'd pace the apartment, muttering about ideas that never made sense. I'd chalked it up to her being passionate, quirky, but now those moments felt like warnings I'd ignored. I loved her, even now, but that love was tangled with rage. She'd gone behind my back, ignored my pleas not to mess with our car, and now 2 people were dead, a mother and her daughter, their lives snuffed out on a Columbus street. I kept seeing their faces in my mind, imagined from the news reports I'd soon read, their names I didn't yet know. My chest ached with guilt, like I'd failed them too, like I should have stopped Emily before it came to this, but how could I have known she'd go this far? Her impulsiveness had always been small, reckless, but manageable. This was different. This was a nightmare, unfolding in slow motion, and I was stuck in the middle, watching the woman I loved slip away, her mind fracturing, leaving me to face the wreckage alone. The trial began a month later in a Columbus courthouse, and every day felt like a fresh wound. I took the bus to the Franklin County Courthouse, each ride a grim reminder of the car Emily destroyed. The courtroom was cold, all polished wood and sterile light, packed with strangers, reporters, family members of the victims, their eyes burning with grief. I sat in the back, trying to shrink into the bench, my hands clenched tight. When Emily walked in, wearing an orange jumpsuit, her wrists cuffed, my breath caught. She looked small, her face pale, her eyes darting around like a trapped animal. I wanted to catch her gaze, to offer some kind of comfort, but she stared straight ahead, lost in her own world. The prosecutor's voice was sharp, cutting through the room as he laid out the case. He described the crash on High Street, the mangled SUV, the lives of Sarah Mitchell, 53, and her daughter Lily, 19, snuffed out in seconds. He showed photos of the wreckage, and I had to look away, my stomach churning. Emily's lawyer, a tired-looking man with graying hair, argued she wasn't in her right mind, but the evidence was brutal witnesses, traffic cam footage, Emily's own confession to me. I felt their eyes on me, the husband who didn't stop her, and guilt clawed at my chest. On the 3rd day, Emily snapped. The prosecutor was presenting the traffic cam video, showing our Civic barreling through the red light. Emily shot to her feet, her voice piercing the silence. "That's not true!" she screamed, pointing at the prosecutor. "You're all lying! This is a setup!" The judge banged his gavel, his face stern, but Emily didn't stop. Her eyes were wild, her hands shaking as she yelled about a conspiracy, about voices telling her the truth. "They're all in on it!" she shouted, turning to the judge. "You don't understand. They're controlling me." My heart sank. This wasn't my Emily, the woman who'd dance around our kitchen to old rock songs. This was someone else, someone unraveling before my eyes. Her lawyer tried to calm her, his hands on her shoulders, but she pushed him away, her voice rising. "The voices, they're in my head. They're working with you," she cried, pointing at the prosecutor, the judge, even me. I froze, her words slicing through me. The courtroom went still, the air thick with shock. The judge called for order, his gavel slamming, but Emily kept screaming, her accusations growing wilder. "You're all part of it! You want to lock me away!" The bailiffs moved in, their faces hard, and she fought them, kicking and thrashing as they dragged her out. Her screams echoed down the hall, shrill and desperate, until they faded into silence. The judge ordered a recess, and I sat there, my hands trembling, my mind racing. Emily's lawyer approached the bench, his voice low but urgent. "Your Honor, my client is clearly unfit to stand trial. I request a psychiatric evaluation." The prosecutor argued back, saying she was faking it, but even he looked shaken. The judge, his patience worn thin, agreed to the evaluation and adjourned the court. I rode the bus home that night, the city lights blurring past, my head pounding. I hadn't slept in days, haunted by the image of Emily's wild eyes, her voice cracking as she ranted about conspiracies. I kept replaying our life together, searching for the moment I missed her slipping away. Had it been there all along, her impulsiveness, her reckless dreams, hiding something deeper, something broken? The evaluation came back a week later. Emily was diagnosed with a severe psychotic disorder, likely schizophrenia, triggered by stress and untreated for years. Her lawyer argued she wasn't responsible for her actions, that her mind had betrayed her. The prosecution pushed for accountability, but the judge's face softened as he listened. In the end, he ruled her not guilty by reason of insanity, committing her to a psychiatric facility in Dayton. As they led her away, still muttering about voices and plots, I felt a hollow ache in my chest. I loved her, but she was gone, replaced by someone I couldn't reach. The trial drained me, left me questioning everything, our marriage, my choices, whether I could have saved her before it all fell apart. Each night, I lay awake, the weight of it all pressing down, wondering if I'd ever find peace again. The first time I visited Emily at the psychiatric ward in Dayton, my stomach was in knots. The facility was a gray, sprawling building, tucked off a quiet road, surrounded by bare trees that looked as lifeless as I felt. I took a bus from Columbus, a long, rattling ride that gave me too much time to think. Would she know me? Would she be the Emily I loved, or the stranger who screamed about conspiracies in court? My hands shook as I signed in at the front desk, the air thick with the smell of antiseptic. A nurse led me down a sterile hallway, my footsteps echoing, my heart pounding like a drum. Emily was in a common room, sitting by a window, a book open in her lap. She looked almost like herself, her dark hair tied back, her face calm, no orange jumpsuit, just plain clothes. When she saw me, her eyes lit up, and for a moment, my chest loosened. "James," she said, her voice soft, and I felt a flicker of hope. We hugged, and I told her I missed her, my words catching in my throat. We sat and talked, her laughter at my dumb jokes almost normal, but there was an edge to it, a hint of something unsteady. She asked about our old apartment, about the coffee shop we used to go to on High Street, and for a while, it felt like we were us again, but that didn't last. Over the next few visits, I saw cracks in her calm. One afternoon, as we sat in the visitor's room, her eyes narrowed, her voice sharp. "Why didn't you lie for me, James?" she asked, her hands twisting in her lap. I blinked, caught off guard. "Lie about what?" I said, my voice low. She leaned forward, her face hard. "You could have told them I wasn't there, that it wasn't me. You let them take me." My heart sank. I explained the police had evidence, witnesses, footage, her own words to me. She didn't listen. "You didn't even try," she snapped, her voice rising. "You're supposed to protect me." I tried to stay calm, reminding her I was here, visiting almost every day despite the long bus rides, no car, and my factory shifts draining me. "I'm doing everything I can, Emily," I said, my voice breaking, but she shook her head, her eyes flashing with anger. "It's not enough. You should have saved me." Each visit got worse. Her paranoia grew, her words sharper, cutting deeper. One day she leaned close, her voice a harsh whisper. "You're part of it, aren't you? You wanted me locked away." My blood ran cold. "Emily, no," I said, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away, her eyes wild. "You're with them, the ones controlling me. I know it." The room felt like it was closing in. I tried to reassure her, to tell her I loved her, that I'd never betray her, but she wasn't hearing me. Her accusations turned frantic, her voice rising until a nurse stepped in, her face kind but firm. "Time's up," she said, guiding me out. Emily stood, her chair scraping the floor, and shouted after me. "You never cared. You let this happen." Her words dissolved into sobs as the door closed behind me. I stumbled down the hallway, my chest tight, tears burning my eyes. The woman I loved was slipping away, lost in a maze of delusions, and I was powerless to pull her back. Each visit left me more broken. I'd ride the bus back to Columbus, staring out the window, replaying her words, her anger, her fear. Guilt gnawed at me. Had I missed something, some sign of her illness before it spiraled? I thought of the nights she'd pace our apartment, her impulsive choices, her reckless dreams. I'd called it passion, but maybe it was more, something darker I didn't see. Now, she was gone, replaced by someone who saw me as the enemy. I kept going back, hoping for a glimpse of the old Emily, but each time, I left with a heavier heart, wondering how much longer I could hold on to her, to us, to the life we'd lost. I knew I couldn't keep living in the shadow of what happened. Our apartment in Columbus felt like a tomb, every corner haunted by memories of Emily, her paint-splattered clothes, clothes, her laugh, her wild eyes that last night. I had to let go. I started selling everything. The couch we'd picked out together, the TV we'd watched late-night movies on, even the little trinkets from our road trips. Each item I sold felt like cutting away a piece of my old life. It hurt, but it was freeing, like shedding a skin that no longer fit. With the money, I bought a beat-up Ford Taurus from a junkyard in Cincinnati. It was a rusted mess, but it had potential. I moved to a temporary shelter in Cincinnati, a cramped place with shared rooms and thin walls, a far cry from our old apartment. The shelter was humbling, but it was a roof, a chance to save up and start over. I spent my evenings in a borrowed garage, tinkering with the car's engine, replacing spark plugs, cursing at stubborn bolts. My hands were greasy, my back ached, but the work kept my mind busy. Each turn of the wrench felt like rebuilding something, not just the car, but me. When the engine finally roared to life one night, I sat behind the wheel, the vibration rumbling through me, and felt a spark of pride I hadn't known in months. Money was tight. My factory job barely covered the basics, and without Emily's income, I lived lean. I sold off clothes, old books, anything that wasn't essential. Living with just a duffel bag of belongings was strange, but it cleared my head. I'd lie awake in the shelter, the snores of strangers around me, and think about the life I'd lost. Emily's face still haunted me, her smile from our early days, her screams in the courtroom, her cold accusations in the ward. I wondered if I could have done more, caught her illness sooner, stopped her that day at the intersection. But those thoughts were a trap, pulling me back into guilt I couldn't carry forever. Driving my patched-up Taurus through Cincinnati's streets, I started to feel the weight lift, just a little. The city was new, unfamiliar, a blank slate. I'd pass coffee shops, parks, people living their lives, and it reminded me I could too. I wasn't ready to forgive Emily, not yet, but I was learning to forgive myself. I'd loved her with everything I had, supported her dreams, even when they broke us. Her choices, her illness, they weren't my fault. I couldn't save her, but I could save myself. The car became my anchor, a symbol of starting over. I'd drive aimlessly some nights, the radio crackling, the city lights blurring past. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I was moving forward, one slow step at a time, piecing together a life from the wreckage. The pain was still there, sharp and heavy, but it didn't own me anymore. I was learning to live with it, to carry it without letting it crush me. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope, like maybe, just maybe, I could find my way again. It's been nearly a year since I last saw Emily, and I'm still picking up the pieces. I drive my old Taurus through Cincinnati's streets, the engine humming, a reminder of how far I've come. But her face still creeps into my thoughts, her bright smile from our early days, her frantic eyes in that courtroom, the cold stranger in the ward. I keep asking myself if I could have changed things. If I'd noticed her unraveling sooner, pushed her to get help, maybe that day on High Street never would have happened. The guilt is a shadow, always there, but it's not as heavy as it used to be. I think about Sarah and Lily, the mother and daughter whose lives ended because of Emily's choice. Their names are etched in my mind, a weight I'll carry forever. I wonder about their family, their pain, and it breaks me to know I'm tied to their loss. But I've learned some things are beyond my control. Emily's illness, her impulsiveness, it wasn't my fault. I loved her, stood by her, even when her dreams drained us. I gave her everything I had, but I couldn't save her from herself. Living in the shelter, working at the factory, I'm building something new. It's not glamorous. My clothes are secondhand, my meals are cheap, but it's honest. I'm learning to live for myself, not the life we planned. Letting go of our old apartment, our things, even her, was like cutting out a piece of my heart, but it's given me space to breathe, to find a flicker of peace. I drive past the Ohio River sometimes, watching the water catch the light, and it feels like a promise that I can keep going. I don't know if Emily will ever get better, if she'll ever be the woman I loved again. Part of me hopes she finds peace, but I can't carry that hope anymore. I've got to keep moving, one day at a time, rebuilding a life that's mine. The memories still hurt, the what-ifs still sting, but they don't define me. I'm learning to forgive myself, to accept that some wounds don't heal, they just become part of you. I'm not whole yet, but I'm here, still driving forward, still chasing a light I can't quite see, but know is out there.